And in 1995, I was in a psychiatric institution with major anxiety disorder, panic disorder, PTSD, and depression. So welcome to the conference. I'm so happy you're here.
And so I don't mean to be flip, I really don't, but it's my story and I'm not ashamed, I'm not embarrassed. It's why I'm here with you today.
I am Tammy West, and that is my story. Welcome to Consider Yourself Hugged, a place to find comfort and support as you navigate your mental and emotional well-being. So sit back and relax, unless you're driving, and get ready for this week's hug. Well, we haven't talked about this at all, which I find to be other than texting and me sending you things. And so yeah, everybody, Michelle's back with us for I don't know how many times, but yay! We were trying so hard to make it work. But when I told her I was doing this, positive psychology series, and I just sent her like the overview and said, do you want to join? So the fun thing is, like, we've both like read some of it and done it. But when we got on here, Michelle told me that she took this value survey, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I was like, don't say anything. We'll talk about it when it's time. I don't want us to have any pre-conversation. So anyway, that's what we're doing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Very
Yeah.
interesting information, this positive psychology.
It is. I'm interested to know, though, because to be honest, when I first read it over and I sent it to you, I thought, and I think I actually said to you, well, it's pretty basic. I mean, I think I said that it was, but I find myself being someone who just wants everything to be epic. You and I have talked about this before. Like, I don't like to repeat myself because I feel like people have already heard this or heard that. So I'm interested. And so I've gotten past that. Like, yes, basic, but also I'm learning a lot because I'm really trying to follow it. So I was interested in your perspective when you first looked it over. What did you think?
I mean, I think it's a great way to organize information. And so we've talked before about how we have to be careful about not assuming that something, like having worked in like this field for like over a decade, like assuming, oh, this is very straightforward. People know that already, because that can definitely lead to leaving out important parts or steps. So I think the way it organizes things is helpful for people. And I think that having the same information presented in different ways is helpful because people learn and receive it differently.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And I also wonder, because we're both in the field. I mean, you're more one-on-one. You're like in this working with people every day. By the way, if you all don't know Michelle, her bio's in there. It feels weird introducing her because we've co-hosted this for a long time, and then she is guest hosting with me now. But Michelle is a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and so you can read everything else about her in the show notes. But so you're on that end, and then me with just what I do with speaking up about mental health. And you and I went together to a conference. Has it been a year ago? The place we went in Franklin for the counselors?
Yeah, it's been probably a little over a year. Yeah.
A little over a year. And I remember thinking, and you might have said it, so they're counseling, you're caring for people in your field, I'm trying to help people, but do any of us follow our own advice the way that we should on taking care of our own selves? Yeah. So when I look at this, I think, sometimes I get in a rut and don't follow the advice, but I'm seeing doing this, that it really is helping. And I'm hoping
it's a great organization tool. Yeah, it's a great organization tool, the way it's laid out, I think.
Well, good. I'm glad you like it. Let's spend a little bit of time. I don't know how much. Michelle, were you able to, did you look at the one that we did last week? Because you weren't with me last week. You may not have had a chance to look at it.
Yes, I looked at it. I didn't look at it right before this, but I did look at it last week.
Okay. So I just wanted to, if you have not, well, here's what I would say. Each of these, so there's going to be 10 of them. I'm not 100% sure if they stand alone or not, because we're going through it together. By together, I mean, if you're watching, if you're listening, we're doing this together. So I think it's probably best to go ahead and start in the beginning so that you can hear all about what positive psychology is. Yeah, in fact, let me just say, yes, I think it's better if you go in order.
Yeah.
But
And what it's not, because there's a lot of assumption that can be made with that term. And so it's very specific. We're not talking about like being positive
yeah.
regardless. And we're not talking about that positive talk, that
What are people toxic positivity?
that's what I was trying to get at. Yes, thank you. That's not what it is.
No, it is definitely not that. And in fact, even when I was telling Tim, my husband, about this, and he was like, he he was talking about, well, yeah, but you, like when I said it's focusing on the positive things and what's working for you and your strengths. And he was questioning me about like, but what about like building things that you don't do well? And this is when I was very first reading it. And I was like, well, I'm sure that's part of it. And then I kept reading, and it's supposed to be a complement to classical psychology. Like, yes, it's okay to focus on our, I hate to call them weaknesses, but things that we aren't as strong. It's okay to focus on that. But a lot of classical psychology only asks the question, what's wrong and how can we fix it? But this complements this by saying, okay, sure, look at that. But then let's also look at your strengths and what's working for you and really focus on how that's working for you and what you can do to build on that. I guess that's a fair way of saying it.
Yes.
But so if you're listening for the first time on this module, you're going to hit pause and you're going to go back and listen to the first one. And each week there will be a worksheet, like an activity sheet. And so I'm trying the best that I can to it's a coaching program, to take the information and make it succinct in the show notes, but also give you this workbook. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things that I learned, because the first thing that I asked you to do was to basically keep track of your feelings between last time and this time. And we talked about you could do it in a journal, you could do it in a workbook, or you could do it on an app. Now, I was going to screen share because I thought I could access my app through my computer, but I can't. Have you done this app yet?
No.
Okay. So I wanted to show you all. I think what I'll do, so if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this, but if you're not, I'm going to explain it. And then I'll probably do some screenshots and put them in the show notes. But what it does is it gives you can click an analysis. And so it's told me that I have checked in 68 times. Okay, now I'm just going to show a picture real quick. So those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can see the blue, green, red, and yellow. And so the bright red is unpleasant, high energy. And gosh, I don't remember what it is, but look, this is the part I thought was really important. More than just that, all of those little icons are the different emotions that I have felt in some shape, form, or fashion over the past, I've probably been doing it about a month. And then it tells me the emotions. And sorry, if you were listening, there were 68 different moods. And this keeps us from clumping, right? Taking every anger emotion that you feel and just calling it anger. It allows you to really pick and choose your emotions. And then it told me the emotions that I felt most often, which was optimistic, which I was surprised. And then it breaks it down to my mood during the day, afternoon, evening. It tells me which day of the week and what I'm feeling. It tells me who I was with and what I was feeling, what I was doing and how I was feeling. And so it's really up to you how much you put in there. So every day that I do it, or every check-in, there's a place for a journal. And then you can put what you're doing, who you with, and where you were. And I have learned a lot. It's hard. Like I found myself wanting to cheat. Like I didn't want to say, well, I can't say that I'm bummed again. you know, I can't say that but I've tried really hard not to cheat. But it's very interesting for you to look to see, like, are there patterns? Do you feel better in the morning versus the evening? Do you feel better when you're by yourself rather than with whoever? And it just takes, I'm going to say, about 1 minute to check in. So I learned a lot from it. I can't ask you all how you felt because you're not here. Michelle, I'm just going to go real quick through the rest of these and you just jump in if you have
Okay.
anything else to say. I'm not going to go through the whole worksheet, but this was kind of sad. So one of the questions is, what action, activity, or event do you have coming up that you already feel happy and enthusiastic about simply by thinking of it? And I was like, Netflix. I mean, boom chicka pop before I go to bed at night. It took me a minute. I mean, I was like, wait, and that like, could you come up with something real quick? Like right now,
I'm
what?
going to see Clue at TPAC with my sister and niece September 14th. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yay! Well, that sounds
Um,
like fun.
yes. So that's kind of the first thing off the top of my head. That's probably the first thing coming up.
And by the way, it doesn't have to be anything big either. It could just be that I mean, that's great, but for listeners and watchers, it can be just that you're going to have ice cream with friend. I mean, it could be anything at all.
Yeah, I always look forward to ice cream.
Yeah, it's funny because we talked about sweets before we started.
Yes.
Um, yes. Well, Tim and I are going down to the beach with some friends in October, and I am looking forward to that. And that is going to be a no work, just for like a weekend, like a Friday through Monday kind of thing. So, but anyway, I guess the reason I'm telling you all these things is that it's kind of enlightening when you get asked these questions, because it's all about like thinking, am I even focusing on some of the positive things that are coming up? Do I even keep them top of mind? Um, so
Or
I'm
am I creating them?
what?
Or have I created enough of them?
Ooh, that's good too. Yeah, Tim told me today that he feels like I don't give my mind time to rest, and that I just don't incorporate enough things that I really enjoy. So, yeah. So I'm gonna work on that. You said you were gonna work on having more peace, enjoyment.
And really, yes. I mean, planning those things that we do look forward to versus just kind of like the day to day to day being so busy that we don't stop and make time for that or appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was enlightening. And then the only other thing, I just wanted to share with you the things that there are a couple things that stood out to me. So part of this was just raising your awareness. And so name an activity that you like to do and that gives you positive feelings. Hands down, and you can see it repeated on the emotions app, is my morning walks. I take Charlie, I pray, listen to my Bible, and then I try to alternate between listening to, sometimes I won't do anything and I just walk, and if it's pretty out, or a podcast or a self-growth book or a fiction book. Hands down, that's the first thing. And I know that for sure. My mood is always best in the morning when I'm doing that. What about you?
I think definitely exercise and kind of morning quiet time, both of those things help to um, kind of get my mood in the right direction. I noticed in doing this, I don't necessarily wake up with this great, like, oh, it's a wonderful day. It's gonna be a wonderful day. But those things definitely help in that motivation.
Yeah. When I started doing the morning meditation that I've talked about it plenty of times on here before, but one of the things, it's not part of the morning meditation, but it's just when I wake up and get up, just go ahead and smile. And it sounds cheesy, or just say, thank you, God. But I've been practicing it and it really does help, you know?
It, oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've talked before, it's like the cheesiest things that work. So you just got to get past that. Well, this is cheesy. You just got to get past it.
I know you've helped me so much just by talking about, uh, it all goes along in that same thing you said before, just not assuming that people already know things, or just feeling like things have to be super special to work, but it really doesn't. It's just a matter of practicing it and incorporating it, which is helpful. Um, so there's a lot more, but then the last thing, so I would love to hear from you all, listeners, watchers, how you felt about this activity. So the last thing that went along with the first module was, Okay, so there's a list of positive emotions and circling the 3 that you believe bring you most happiness. And I circled serenity, curiosity, and hope. And then to think about the people who make up your close circle of friends and family, write down the names of 3 people who bring you the most happiness and feelings of joy. And then next to their names, write down 3 words or adjectives that describe your relationship with these people. So I wrote down Tim, and I wrote down, he makes me feel loved, he's fun, and he brings adventurous to our relationship. I wrote down Michelle, and I put support and humor and inspiration because if we don't laugh about some of the things that we talk about together, I don't.
Or that we've gone through. It's
Yes,
been
that's what.
an
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we would be here. But here's where the tough part came in. So there's a third line. Friends and family. Do I pick one of my children? Do I pick? And so I left it blank. There is no one on that third line because I just couldn't do it. I don't know. What do you think about that? Is that crazy? Because they each bring me an element of happiness. Anyway, I thought, well, maybe I'll just pick another person.
What
So
does it ask? Remind me, does it ask like top 3 or just 3?
the names of 3 people who bring you the most happiness and feelings of joy.
Most happiness.
Yeah. So I can do it in my head, but I am not writing it down.
Yeah.
It's not going to be written. So I don't know. Anything about that you want to share?
I think that it's hard to only like have 3, to name only 3. And it's almost like, we're doing this in an open forum, but like through this because you did the positive psychology certification, you would be working one-on-one with someone. So it's not necessarily like they're going to be sharing it to where everybody.
Well, that's
can.
true, but I don't think I could even find myself writing it down. Maybe I could say the top, maybe because I'm working through the certification process as I'm doing this. I'm doing the activities, and there's extra things I have to do besides what we're doing together. But maybe I would say just the top people, and not, I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. I have this activity. I haven't done it in a long time, but I learned it from a CD series on something about emotions, and I used to do it a lot with groups. And they take a piece of paper and well, anyway, and they fold it in half, and then they fold it in half again, and then they open it up and rip it into 4 no, sorry, they don't rip it.
That one. Yeah.
Remember it?
Yes. Yes,
And
I
then
do.
you write the 4 things that are most important to you, and then you rip them off one at a time, and people will be like, no, like, I'm sure this isn't making sense, but you basically write down the 4 things that are most important to you. And then I say, if you only had time for 3, which one would go first? And then if you only had time for 2, which one would go next? And then if you only had time for 1, and would tell them, please do it. No one's going to know. No one's going to, but some people are like, no, my kids are on here. God is on here. My husband's on here. No. So
Yeah.
they would be kind of mad at me.
Yeah. Despite the fact that like it's not real. It doesn't matter. It's still.
I know. And this wouldn't be real either, writing it down. I mean, kind of real. Anyway, yeah, it's a weird thing. So that was the first module. Basically, positive psychology is about just getting in touch with what emotions you're feeling and how often you're feeling them and what brings you joy and who brings you joy. And there are other things on that activity too. What things are you looking forward to as far as goals that drive you every day? When do you get in a sense of flow where time just passes by quickly because you're so engaged? It's really just kind of evaluating all of that. Now we are ready to go on, which I actually meant to have this open for us. Last time I did a fair amount of just like reading some things. Okay. So today we are talking about character strengths and how to apply them. So I'm just going to read you just a little bit of what it says here. So Peterson, who was another psychologist, and Martin Seligman highlighted 24 different character strengths that have been generally recognized and valued through history in various cultures, to set out to prove that these character strengths have not been proposed by chance, but rather, or they set out, but rather from deep observations of human behavior. And they play an important role since there's evidence that they are one of the main contributing factors to personal fulfillment. But identifying them is not really enough. You have to identify them and then figure out how you're incorporating them into your life. So there is it's free. Now, Michelle, you probably noticed they tried to upsell you. You saw that part, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So there is a website that all of this will be, of course, in the show notes. And it's via character, I guess. It's a via survey test to help you discover your top 5 strengths, and then to look at them, figure out if you're already using them, how you're using them, and how you could use them more. Now, I took it, I don't know, like a week or 2 ago, but you just took it, right?
I did. Yes.
So maybe just tell us a little bit about how you felt about the experience of taking it. It takes 15 minutes or so.
If that, it's doesn't take a terribly long time. There's I believe 96 questions, but they go very, very quickly. There's it's multiple choice, so you pick and like it's like very much like me, neutral, like unlike me, and so forth. And so I took it. I was surprised. I mean, a little surprised by the results. Some of the questions, understandably, like any test like this, repeat because they're trying to get consistency in answers, of course. But I felt like the questions, it's again very much like other tests like this that you take where you read it and you're like, was that really my answer? But
Yeah.
again, it's not meant for you to ponder forever.
And it'll tell you this too, but I want to make sure you don't miss it. Try to be careful about not, because there is a neutral. And if you like, there's A, B, C, D, E, and like C is neutral, or is that what
Yes.
it
Yes.
cautions you to be careful not to do that too often, or you won't get good results. So really trying to pick.
Yeah, I thought that some of the things were surprising. Some of them were very much like right on, and I can see kind of how it could be helpful in uh, like developing things that can be lifelines in everyday life.
So, did you print out like, or did you get all 24?
Yes, I wrote them all out.
Okay. So what, just so you know, when you go to take this, it is free, and you can even you'll get the report of the 24, and then it ranks them from 1 to 24. And then I didn't even pay attention. There's a paid version, which I might do, but I don't know. Right now, I'm just kind of staying with the basics so I can work through it the way that you're working through it too. So you want me to start, or do you want to start?
Mm.
I was just going to talk about them.
Oh, you
Or,
can talk. You
or
can
insight.
talk about it, and then I will talk about my results.
Okay. One thing that, well, a couple things in the show notes, I will put all 24, and they will be broken down actually into categories that you'll see when you go to the show notes, but they'll all be there with some descriptors. So all of that will be in there. And then I'm about to go over, make sure that, so if you have not done the character survey, I would go ahead and pause and go do that, and then come back and listen to the rest of it. And then I'm going to talk about a couple of things on the activity sheet that you'll have access to. But the first thing that kind of made me laugh, and I already shared this with Michelle. So the point is to discover your top 5. How do you feel when you're living in these strengths? How are you utilizing them? How might you utilize them more? But one of the first things that I did, I swear I feel like I'm just TMI, but I really am trying to grow, is I was like, I looked at the end and I was like, wait, 22 is teamwork. You're saying I suck at teamwork? What do you mean? Like 21 was love. So I looked at the bottom ones thinking that that meant that I was terrible at teamwork or love or self-regulation but that's not what this means. And I want to tell you all this to be sure. This is to identify the top 5 strengths that like give you motivation, that when you are living in these, you feel stronger, you feel more well-being and happiness. So it does not mean that because 22 was teamwork that I'm bad at teamwork. It just means that that's not one of the top things that drives me. It's kind of like, I think it's kind of like when we talk about introverts and extroverts, and it doesn't mean that if you're an introvert, you don't like people. It just means that you get your batteries recharged more by being alone. So,
Well, yeah, right. What things bring you joy?
yeah,
Like that type of question versus what are you best at?
yeah. So let's do it this way. So on your activity sheet, step number 1 is to take the survey. Step number 2 is to write out your top strengths. So I'm going to say mine and then you say yours. Are you good with that?
Yeah, of course. I don't
Yeah,
mind.
I'm assuming. So mine was in order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5: spirituality, forgiveness, humility, love of learning, and curiosity. What were yours?
Mine was spirituality was number 1, love of learning, fairness, judgment, prudence.
Prudence. Now, you said a minute ago that you were kind of surprised. Did you say that?
I did, but so again, like framing it, the things that bring me the most joy, I am very careful about decisions I make, and I do think through a lot of every angle of things before I make a decision, or a lot of times even before I speak. So, I mean, those are pretty in line with that. The middle ones were more the ones I would have thought would have been higher, but at the same time, you know, I know that it's not necessarily about that.
And you probably figured that out early on. You think I should read all of them? Yeah.
Yeah, you can do
Just so,
that. Yeah.
yeah, just so in case, like I said, to stop and go take the thing. But if you haven't, you might just want to know what the other ones are. Let's see. 6. Well, just these are in my order. Okay. Um, I'm not going to number them. I'm just going to read them. Perspective, social intelligence, creativity, gratitude, humor, fairness, appreciation of beauty and excellence, hope, judgment. That's so funny because I don't always think things through and examine them from all sides, but that you do. Ah, okay, leadership, honesty, kindness. See, it's so weird. I'm like, kindness is 17, but I get it. I mean, okay,
Yeah.
like I know kindness is important. Okay, prudence, being careful, perseverance, self-regulation, love, teamwork, zest, and bravery. I wanted to mention bravery because we have talked about this before. You and I have had a conversation, well, many conversations about speaking up when people are talking about things that, what do we, not offensive, what would be a better word? That are wrong or that are hurtful
Or that they're coming at it from a different point of view and wanting to also add like another look or view. We talk sometimes about how things come across and people absolutely mean to be doing it in a positive light, but to try to share a different opinion,
Mhm, mhm.
particularly one we know they're not going to receive well. Because like honestly, like when I read mine, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead. But yeah,
No,
the
I was going to say to
bravery,
read yours, but tell me
yeah,
what.
so 22, 23, and 24 were teamwork, zest, and bravery.
What? How though? I mean, because the reason I wonder, So like bravery, we've talked about, gosh, I have to figure out how to,
No, it makes sense because I 100% where I am now in life, and I think you too, we will do it because we feel called to do it. It's not my favorite thing. It's
ah,
not something that I'm gonna like jump up and down and be happy about. I don't love conflict. I don't love making people mad.
right.
And so, like, even though at this point in our lives we do it, this is about what brings us fulfillment and joy.
Right, right. I guess I think though I do it, but it takes a lot for me to do it. And I think you're better at doing it than I am. Like if someone, we've talked about this before, there was a group setting and the topic of mental health came up, and there were a couple of comments like, well, so and so is, and they do the air quotes, depressed, and they're just doing it for attention. And I will always speak up, you know, when it comes to that. But oftentimes, if it's politics or even if I have a different view, I probably won't. So, unless it relates, unless I think there's someone in the room who might be affected by that. I mean, I guess I'm just saying it takes a lot for me to just flat out speak up.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. Like, if there is a chance to provide another perspective and maybe help, like, for someone to see something a different way, then it's worth it. Otherwise, if it's just going to be a fight, if it's just going to be two people that are just going to agree to disagree, I'm
Yeah.
often the same. I'm not going to invest my energy and time to engage in that. So,
Yeah. So why? Yeah. I'm so glad that you agreed to be on this today because just even talking it through. So if you're watching or listening, I hope that you will find somebody to talk it through with as well. Um, because just this conversation is helping me process things a little bit differently. Like I was surprised that we both had bravery because I really feel like you do that better than me. But then you're reminding me, but that's not what it's about. It's about just
yeah.
because you do it doesn't mean it's this character strength that feeds you.
Yeah, and I don't know that I do. I certainly wouldn't say I do it better than you, but I 100% know that like I don't love it.
Yeah. It's interesting. Did you have any other thoughts about any of the middle ones that surprised you or that I guess the question I want to ask now, I had a couple thoughts was these are shown by research to be top traits that bring joy into people's lives if you're living in those. It's another, I think it's kind of another thing for just values. Um, but were there any surprises about anything that was on the list or that wasn't on the list for you?
I would say like the middle, and I'm gonna go ahead and read the list, but I
Yeah,
really
go
would have
ahead.
thought the middle would have been higher when it comes to things that inspire, give me joy or hope, because the middle, starting with 6, was gratitude, hope, perspective. And I really would have thought that gratitude would have been higher because I feel like that is often something that I'll turn to if like something is difficult. But hope, perspective, social intelligence, forgiveness, humility, appreciation of beauty and excellence, honesty, perseverance, self-regulation. Is that right? Self-regulation, yeah.
Yeah.
Leadership, love, humor, creativity, kindness, curiosity, teamwork, zest, and bravery. And I have a thought about the kindness one. I think that it
What
is
number was that for you?
20. Where was it for you?
It was 17.
17. So it's like I think that women in particular, maybe Southern women, are just kind of taught that you have to be kind. And like, is that something that always brings us joy? Like, I think when I'm doing it genuinely, it definitely does, if that makes sense. But I also think we're kind of taught like that's the status quo.
Well, my Judith Baker Miller, one of my favorite, I talk about her book, A New Psychology of Women all the time. And she does talk about for women, but even for society as a whole, that we function better when we serve each other and help take care of each other, unless we feel forced to do it. We feel like it's just a chore. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I want to mention too, what number was honesty for you? I think it was
13.
13 and I was 16. So I think, because again, it's like, seems like I should be really motivated. But if you read the description, so this is why you all need to go, download this stuff, look at it, read it. This is for you to really grow. But one way to look at the strength of honesty is speaking the truth, but more broadly, presenting oneself in a genuine way and acting in a sincere way, being without pretense, taking responsibility for one's feelings and actions. And so maybe I think for some of us, it may not feel like you can, like, being genuine all the time with everybody might be a little tough, you
Well, and
know?
it's listed when you look at the categories, it's listed under courage. And so I think some of the questions that coincided with bravery about, like, do you speak up?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. So I mean, I think it kind of looped not speaking up when you maybe felt like there were words to be said. It linked it to that too, I think.
Yeah. Well, and having said that, let me read now. The categories I'm going to give you and the strengths under them might not match exactly with this profile, because this is what comes from the actual, like, program. So it might be a little bit different, but it's close. And I'll put this in the show notes. So underneath the category of wisdom and knowledge is creativity, curiosity, the love of learning, and wisdom. Under bravery is bravery, perseverance, honesty, authenticity. Under humanity is kindness, generosity, and social intelligence. Under fairness, working in a group, which teamwork, sense of fairness, justice, and leadership. Under self-control is forgiveness, modesty, caution, discretion, and self-control. Under transcendence is appreciation of beauty and excellence, vitality, gratitude, optimism, hope, humor, and spirituality. So again, it's not going to match up exactly with what you see on this, but it's pretty close. So that makes it even more interesting. But I mean, it would take forever to go through every single category and every single strength. And I don't think, I may not have sent you the workbook yet, so we won't go over everything, but I want to make sure everybody knows what to do from here. So you've listed your top strengths. Okay. Step 1 was taking it. Step 2 was listing your top strengths. And then step 3 is analyzing them. So for each of your top 5 strengths, there's 3 questions. And I'm just going to answer them just for spirituality. So for strength 1, spirituality, how do you currently use it in your daily life? And I just put prayer and Bible reading. Number 2, what activities allow you to use this strength regularly? And I just put attending church as an activity and just regularly turning to God. And number 3, what do you feel when you apply this strength? And I put hopeful and peaceful. Do you want to add anything for any of your strengths? It's how do you use it? What activities, or how do you feel?
I think like the spirituality part, I mean, really, in love of learning, it's like how I use it is just day to day life. Like the spirituality part, I think in my results, it came up biggest in terms of purpose, providing purpose, and which for me provides direction. Um, and so the love of learning kind of goes into then learning things that also contribute to that. And
Oh, that's
then
good.
where do I use it? Really everywhere, especially work. I use it at work. I use it in relationships, families, friendships. Just to, I mean, one of the things I pray for a lot is like insight, wisdom, like trying to be discerning and be a good friend, support, and so forth. And so I think like just day to day. And then the last question, I don't remember what the last question was.
How do you feel when you're applying this strength?
Hopeful, like you said. I mean, I think it does like what gives a sense of hope and purpose to know that there is like something greater. And I'm not important enough to mess up something that's already been.
And I was going to
already.
say, you're such a good person. You're praying for wisdom and strength. And, I'm praying for help me not kill this person. I'm just kidding. Okay. So step 4, which this, it's going to be a while before we revisit this. I just really love this because, well, back to step 3, what we just did. If I buy into, if I take this assessment and I believe it to be true that these are my top 5 character strengths, and I'm analyzing it, then there should be some examples, where I'm using it. Now, if I'm not using it, then maybe that's part of my lack of peace, right? Like if spirituality is important to me, but I'm not praying, I'm not reading my Bible, I'm not going to church, well, then that might be part of the reason that I'm not having as much peace as I want. So that first thing is analyzing. And then the next step is for a month, okay, for each strength, identify a specific daily situation where you can practice it and explain. So for this, and I haven't done this yet. In fact, I just started looking into it. So I put love of learning. I just chose that one. We've already talked enough about spirituality. So a daily situation, because I do really like to learn. And so I started looking up, are there apps that'll give me like in the mornings, it's not necessarily learning, but I love to do Wordle and all the New York Times. I just love to do all that. But I was like, is there an app sort of like the emotions thing where I can just take a couple minutes every day and learn some little tidbit of knowledge? And there's one called Nibble. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to check it out. And if it's any good, I'll post it in the show notes. So the strength is love of learning. A daily situation is maybe that app that's going to give me a little bit of knowledge every day. And then why? Well, because it looks like it explores a number of different topics. And so it would be just interesting just to get little nibbles of knowledge every day. So I don't know. You haven't had a chance to think about that, but does anything stand out as to something you could do daily for a month for one of your strengths?
I really like your idea about the love of learning, like incorporating something daily in about that. I think that still kind of processing, trying to figure out like this was very like it really showed me because like prudence is my 5th and Zet is my 23rd. And that we've talked about that before. That's one of the things that's like, like the fact that I'm so careful, which is often not considered to be a good thing, but it kind of showed me that, that is where I have the most peace. Like in terms of if I was out here, if I had a day and I just made impulsive decisions all day just to do it, that's not where my peace and serenity would come from. That would probably cause me lots of anxiety.
Yes.
And so like accepting like the reason that this is part of my personality and character is because it really does drive peace and serenity for me.
Which is important.
Yes. So kind of like walking through that, like maybe incorporating like ways that I'm careful about things, but also providing more a variety, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think,
Still figuring it out.
yeah, I think that what you're feeling there is what I've been feeling about some of these before, but just reminding yourself that you're having a strength of prudence has nothing to do with having fun or zest or any of that. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It just has to do with, like you said, the part that gives you peace. It doesn't mean that there are times when you can throw caution to the wind. And
Not me, no.
yes, okay. I have to try to think of. No, I
Okay, you think of one time in my whole life, Tammy. Think about that.
Well, I mean, it's not like, when you're on here with me, we're oftentimes just fly by the seat of our pants and you're fine with that.
That's true. That's true.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
See, give me time and I'll find another one, but
And I would like to point out to all the listeners that we've known each other for over 20 years. And
that's,
you came up with
that's not fair. You know my memory. You're constantly saying, do you remember that time that we blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, no, no, I don't remember that at all. So,
realistically, we both changed careers like
mm,
midlife. And so that is somewhat
yeah, I
uh,
think
a
teaching
risk.
high school, the trauma has just blocked that part of my life out, out. Okay, so you're going to do that for a month. Just now, the goal would be to look at each of your 5 strengths. And I'm doing this, by the way, friends, watchers, listeners, because Michelle and I did holistic mental health a couple weeks ago, and I am committed more than ever to just doing all the things. You know, I told you medication became part of my overall health plan, and so is this, and counseling is back in, and just so the walking and the praying, if that gives me peace, I'm doing it. So there you go. Oh, so let me show you this last step, and I'm going to screen share this example. So a blank one will be there for you in the show notes, but let me share this. This is the example. So what you're going to do after, okay, Michelle, are you seeing that?
Yes,
Okay. Are you seeing it kind of full screen or are you seeing it
I
again?
am. Yeah,
Oh,
we can
okay.
see it.
Okay, good. So you're going to have a blank one and I'm just holding it. If you're listening and not watching, this is called the Wheel of Strength. So there are 5 sections, one for each of your strengths. And for each strength, so the wheel goes one, so it's a wheel divided into 5 like spokes on a bicycle. And the number 1 is in the center and the number 10 goes out to the outer part of the wheel for each little piece of pie. And your job is to, for each strength, mark your current usage level from 0 to 10, okay, or from 1 to 10. Are you barely using it or are you just using it all the time and you're a 10? And then mark your desired level. Do you want to be at an 8? Do you want to be, and then you're just going to kind of triangle that together and that's going to show you. Does that make sense, Michelle?
Yes.
What you're looking. And what it is, I'm going to stop sharing. So the blank wheel and the sample wheel will both be in there, so it'll make sense how to do it. What this is just a visual representation of where you are in your strengths, where you want to be, and just what that looks like. And I thought it was a really, really great activity. I haven't done it yet because it's a month. You're supposed to do it for a month, and then you can look at areas that you want to grow and develop. Because if I look, I don't know, let me look, which I feel like my spirituality, I mean, we can always do better, but I'm pretty committed. Forgiveness, it's an interesting thing to think, okay, forgiveness, how can I practice that daily? I don't really know. I have to put some, like, if I have to forgive someone every single day, then I don't know. But humility is a weird one because like with what I do and like you got to market yourself and you got to, and I do not like, so I have to figure that out too. um but curiosity and love of learning for sure. I know that I can put things into my daily practice and the other ones I'm sure too. I just have to kind of, it may not be a daily, honestly, it may not be a daily thing, but it might just be that I look for opportunities, for example, for forgiveness. Maybe there are people like when we did the bully thing, I realized that I had not completely forgiven my bully. And that was an important thing to me. And when I did, it did give me a great deal of peace. So even though it may not be daily, it's something that I always need to keep like top of mind. What about you as you look at all of them?
I think keeping up with examples, like taking a couple of days and just noticing different examples throughout my day will help me kind of develop a plan. to incorporate them more. Like, where am I using these already?
Mm-hmm.
And where could I be using them more?
Yeah. Well, between this week and when you see us, I'm hoping next week, then I'm spending time with each of these, and we'll do the same thing next time. We'll spend 10 minutes or so, going over some things. And by the way, we always ask you to put things on the show notes, but my email's there. Send me things, that you might want us to talk about, or, I'm just loving this a lot more than I thought I would. And and be kind to yourself too, though. I mean, yes, we're asking you to do this every day for a week and then do the other things, make a monthly plan, but don't beat yourself up if you can't do all those things, or, just do what you can, just do what you can. All right. What else, Michelle?
I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot for a week.
I think it's a lot too. Okay. Well then, so last week we talked about what positive psychology is and ways to identify your most predominant emotions, how you're feeling with different people, different situations. And then this week we talked about character strengths, and then when you're living in them and using them, that will tend to allow you to feel more positive emotions, more well-being, more happiness. And then we'll keep going for next week. So in the show notes, all the things that I promised, I'll look at the Nibble app and see if that's anything good. And if it's not one, then I have a paper planner along with technology, but I do love little apps that just, give me a quick way to do things. So I'll put all that stuff in there. And as always, comment or the show notes, Facebook, follow A Place for Women. We're trying to do more in there now. And just when I say I'm doing more, then anyway, we're all doing our best. Isn't that right?
That's exactly right.
We are all doing our best. Okay, well then that's all we have for you today. And so here we go. Until we're together next time, consider
yourself hugged. Yay.